Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Sochaczevski. I'm going to be teaching you guys about GDP calculations today, if the buttons work. So GDP is a measure of productions. GDP is a measure of what a country earns. It's also a measure of what a country produces. You've probably heard this term a lot when talking about how much wealth like the US has and stuff like that. The GDP identity for a country's entire economy is that income is equal to expenditure, which is equal to output. Now we're going to explain how to calculate GDP by expenditures, which is the main way that you'll be calculating GDP. So GDP is going to be equal to C plus G plus I plus NX, which means that GDP is equal to consumptions plus government spending plus investments plus net exports. We're going to go through what each of those are very quickly and in a way that you'll understand, I hope. So calculating GDP by expenditures. So there it is again. C is consumption, G is government spending, I is investment, NX is equal to net exports or imports minus exports. Should be exports minus imports. My bad. Consumption is the final goods bought and sold in the economy. Final goods are goods that aren't used to make other goods. So it's not like metal that's going to become part of your car's engine. And the easiest way to compare the different goods is you use the prices. That's how you figure out how much the goods are worth. Government spending, it's when the government buys goods or pays salaries. But it's not when the government pays benefits like social securities or unemployment. These are considered transfer payments. Investment is goods that are used later, like the scrap metal I talked about earlier that becomes the engine, that becomes part of your car, you know? And net exports, it's exports minus imports, not imports minus exports like I have at the bottom of the slide. I'm very sorry about that. So when manufacturers in a country send or sell to people or firms in other countries, so net is minus all the things produced in other countries and sent here. So that is exports minus imports. I will flip that and send that in the PowerPoint guide. So income is equal to expenditure equal to output. What about savings? Savings are eventually spent, so they count when they're spent. If you counted them when they're saved and then when they're spent, you'd be double counting them. So you can't do that. You only count them when they're spent. What about household productions? Agencies try to calculate GDPs for that, but they don't fully do it every time. And then what about illegal or under-the-counter activity? GDP doesn't usually account for this. I actually wrote a little paper about a time the GDP did count for that. But in general, GDP does not count for that. Does not account for that. Summary, so just the main topics revisit is that income is equal to expenditure is equal to output, and GDP is equal to consumption plus investments plus government spendings plus net exports, and that most income, expenditure, and output is accounted for in GDP. Thank you. Have a great day. How do I stop recording?